¿Estás sola ahí o no está la chica?
Hi, everybody.
¿Cómo?
Hello.
No, una administración del año.
Hello. Can you guys hear us? We have a really bad connection. It's a really bad lag. I know it says excellent connection, but it doesn't look like that here. Okay, we're gonna wait a couple more minutes just to make sure that everybody is connected. And we'll start. Thank you, Mateo, that it looks good, but from this side, it's not good. The lag is about a minute, and it's telling us that there's not enough video to maintain smooth streaming, so kind of uncomfortable because I don't know what is going on. It's very strange. Okay, well, I mean, if for you guys it's okay, then it's gonna be okay for us too.
Uno, dos, tres, cuatro, cinco, seis, siete, ocho, nueve, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. Wow, like 20 seconds.
Yeah, more.
More.
Really bad. Okay.
Let's try anyway. That's the.
Yeah.
Okay,
so we're just gonna look on the other feed and kind of ignore the YouTube feed, and hopefully it's gonna be all okay, and you guys are gonna be able to see us and everything else. So, do you have your phone, Ivan? Can you go and we can look at the questions that they have, please?
The phone?
Yeah. Okay, so today we are talking about turns. This is a favorite topic of ours. Lo que tenía. This is a favorite topic of ours, so we're super happy to talk about it because, like we always say, people tend to practice a lot for a linear movement in tango. A lot of exercises are for everything that's linear. But in the end, the important part about tango is turning because that's what we do most of the time. So a little bit tricky is the understanding of how to practice for the linear things, what is turning versus what is a line, And I think that's something that we need to get out of the way right away. So a line, or when we have lines in tango, is literally when we are walking only forward, only backward, and side to side in front of each other in parallel system. So that looks like this.
Yeah.
So let's orient this way. So see, we're completely aligned with each other. Our feet are in the spaces that in each other's spaces. So if Ivan is walking backwards, he will walk back in a line. My feet enter into that position. If he walks forward, it's the same. And then when we go side by side, it's the same. So the only time that we have linear walking is literally when we're in parallel system, walking in front of each other in a line, or taking a side step in a line. So the moment that we have either a walk that starts to go in any direction but a line, or we have cross system, or we have outside partner position, we're no longer in any type of line. Now we are in a circular movement. Yeah. So this is really important to remember, so that when you're practicing, that actually you spend most of your practice time working on your turning movements rather than walking on your linear movements. So in terms of linear movements, what's important to work on?
What's important to walk? What? Everything else that we have already talked before about, that have to do with your access, where the movement comes from, how you're using your legs to interact with the ground.
Like the articulation of your ankles, all of that kind of stuff. It's easier to do in a linear movement because we're more used to just walking like that. The sensation is like you're walking in a line on the street.
Yeah. But once that you have implemented those elements into the linear movement, again, there are not so many linear movements that we use, so then you have to start to add those things into the circular movements.
So what is specific about circular movements? What's specific about circular movements is that your body, how your body works, it has to match the movement.
So you have to resemble the circularidad.
So if Ivan walks in a circle, he is not going to walk like he does in a line. So I'm going to move a little bit out of the way.
There you go. So I want to make a circle. I'm not going to do... See, I'm making a line, but I'm trying to make a circle, but it's too linear. It almost looks like a square.
So he's still kind of turning it. In order to be able to make a circle with linear steps, you would almost have to do these tiny little steps.
You can see it.
Yeah, almost like line, 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 line. Yeah? But we don't walk like that in tango. We actually take long steps. That's kind of like a little bit.
Can you take the computer?
Mm-hmm.
So circular, the beautiful thing about circular movements is that all that you have to do is to think like you're literally making a circle, and you're trying to face or keep your left shoulder, in this case I'm going to my left, and I'm trying to keep everything on the same place here. And I'm literally trying to make all the movements circular as much as I can. Little by little you see that you have one leg that naturally starts to adjust. Yeah, you don't want to do this. And then the one that close to the circle is easier because it just opens, it turns, and the other one slightly adjusts. But if you think about it as a big turn, I'm trying to make a curve, there is not so much adjustment. It's a really tiny one, naturally, and then the more I take it,
The tighter the curve,
tighter,
the more adjustment there is. So if Ivan is walking and then he stops in his walk in like a forward step position.
So if I make the circle, you mean?
Mm-hmm.
And then you decide to stop.
And then he stops. So if you look at his body, there are no lines on his body. So this is super, super important because a lot of the time when we do circular movements, we still somehow end up in a linear position. So if you look at Ivan, his front foot is rotated towards the turn. His back leg is turned out, so both of his legs are essentially turning out. The hips are splitting the difference. His inside shoulder is facing the inside of the turn. So he's facing the inside of the turn in this situation because the assumption is that his partner, or me, is in that position to the turn. So if he keeps on walking around, you can imagine that there's a body there. That's why his upper body is facing there. So Ivan, can you stop with your right leg forward? Stop. Stop. Okay, let's try that again.
You haven't danced in a while. Just start moving.
Okay, so forward steps and step in a side step. But keep on facing the inside of the circle.
Oh, okay. I thought you wanted to.
No, there. So he's still facing the inside of the circle. So instead of stepping in a forward step like he stepped before, he's now stepping in a side step. So if you look at the side step is also not really linear. It's not square. It's not a linear side step. It's a rotated side step. Yeah? So let's say that now that Ivan's partner, instead of being on the inside part of the circle, is on the outside part of the circle. How would that look? Yeah, so can we walk that part too, the same way? Same circle, but just walk outside?
Yeah.
But now your partner is on the outside the whole time that you're walking.
I don't understand your
Okay.
So it's easier when you do that.
I will do it because Ivan doesn't understand my instructions. This is my life. Okay, so if my partner is on the inside of the circle, I'm always going to be facing the inside of the circle. But now my partner can also be on the outside of the circle. So if you notice, that position is that my partner is here, but my legs and my body is still moving on the inside, circling with the body. So we don't always only have this relationship of the upper body to the legs. It's also possible to have this relationship of the upper body to the legs. So this would be in a forward step. I know it doesn't look like a forward step, but it is. And this would be in a side step. Yeah, so my partner is still here. So a lot of the time we get married to kind of like shapes that we have to have, but in reality the shapes that our bodies make have to do with the shape of the movement that we're making. In this case it's a circle, and where our partner is in relationship to where we're moving. So in tango we're really lucky because our partners can be in a lot of different places. They can be in front of us, they can be to the side of us, and they can be to the other side of us. So whenever you're thinking about turning or doing anything turny, don't think like there is a turn shape which is always the same and that you have to respect all the time. It's completely possible to have turn shapes which are different depending on actually the geometry or the movement in space that we're doing when we turn. And where the upper body is facing has to do also with where our partner is. So don't think that it's always facing in one way. It's also possible to be facing in different ways.
So please, never, never, ever, ever.
Yeah. So this is an assumption about turns, and a lot of times people practice turns this way. They take a chair. So in this case, our chair is going to be this beautiful square box of
which most of the chairs, they're square. So people use them somehow. Let me put it here so you see them better. Right? And then somehow people go around the chair and then they try to do the turn. Sorry, this is completely useless.
Yeah. So
because it's not realistic. It's a nice thing that you can practice, but it's not realistic. This doesn't really happen. Yeah. You don't make these lines. You turn and line, you turn and line. It's not realistic.
Yeah, it's not realistic for several reasons. The first reason is that there are no lines in rotations. If we have linear steps or linear directions in a circular movement, the use of energy is completely incorrect. So if I take a linear side step, the energy continuation of that movement won't be to continue around. It's actually going to be to continue out. So in the side steps, it's not so important, but let's say in a forward or back step, if I take a forward step, my forward direction and a forward momentum that takes me this way then has to be contained by something. And a lot of the time,
Sure.
this gets contained by the embrace. So we'll show you what that looks like.
Sara will show you what she just said. I have to remember everything that she said.
So if I think that the turn is square, and I start the turn in a forward step, and I take this forward step in a line, this position now here, my next step, natural movement from moving through my feet is this way.
Meaning the natural transfers of weight, it goes that way. So now to be able to compensate and bring her around, what do I have to do? We have to find somehow anything to compensate. A lot of the times, this is what's helping us to connect physically, so we end up doing this. So we end up have to move the follower from the top, from the arms.
So then the embrace kind of becomes like a contention tool. It's containing the energy from moving where it would go naturally, which is in a line, and it's kind of forcing the body of the follower to go in a circle. So we'll just show you this example with the forward step because it's pretty clear. This is also the case in back steps. It's no different. So in my forward step, if I already have this rotation and I'm already going around, now from this position, my natural transfer of energy as I keep going is actually going to be to keep going in a circle. So there is no requirement to have any pulling or pushing from the embrace because the direction of my movement is already curving everything that has to happen. Yeah?
Can you show them the back step?
Mm-hmm.
So same idea, look at the back step. So the same thing.
So in the back step, if my back step is linear, or if I try to pivot as much as I can and I go in the line, so this will still be here. Now, when I transfer my weight, I'm going too far. I'm going out of the embrace. But if I'm thinking that actually in these rotated movements, my body also has to be circular, so I have a hip opening, and my foot is open, the next weight transfer is already taking me into a circle.
One more time. So make the linear.
So this is linear.
No. Yes. And she goes that way. Can we show you that one more time? Go ahead. So she went linearly. See where she goes in relationship to me. And when circular. Can you do the pivot linearly so they see the difference? And circular. Everything comes toward me.
Yeah, so the shape of the body in rotations is really important because the shape of the body, the turn, the spiral body shape, really helps energy in the turn to be correct for whatever is happening next in terms of turning. So this is one thing, that the body shape in rotated movements and the body shape in linear movements is not the same. Also, body shapes in less rotated movements and body shape in more rotated movements is not the same. So if I have a tiny little amount of turn, let's say I'm just going here, I don't have to have a lot of spiral position in my body. But if from this position I have all of this space that I need to take, then my spiral has to be more extreme. So each body has like a spiral maximum. And the easiest way to see that is in the back step. So for my body, my spiral maximum is this. I cannot go more than this. If I need to step at a point or in a direction further than this point here, I will have to make an adjustment. Yeah? So it's never also a good idea to copy somebody else's shape in their body because where you can step to make these rotated movements has to do with how your body is organized. So some people who are more flexible, they might be able to go deeper, and some people who are less flexible, they might be able to go shallower, and it doesn't matter because you can always make the adjustment by pivoting from the standing leg to compensate for whatever it is that flexibility-wise you're not able to make. So that's never really a concern. You should never be worried about that.
The hardest thing is like once that we go into the turns is to maintain that all the movements are circular. And one good indicator of this is to have the idea that this is like how we like to think about it, that you always twist it Twisted on the sense that your hips are turning more than your upper body, or your upper body is turning more than your hips. More likely is going to be the first one that I told you, that is hips turn more than the upper body.
So don't think that it's only, Ivan is just emphasizing hips and upper body, but actually your feet have to turn as much as your hips, because if you don't turn your feet, you're going to have serious knee problems. So I know somebody wrote about having knee pain when they're turning, and that has to do with the idea that you're torquing yourself instead of pushing from the floor and actually having your foot activate your turn.
For example, movement. Simple movement. Well, simple, relatively simple. Yeah, whatever. So look, every movement we need to find, because it's circular, we need to find that we're slightly twisted to make it circular. For example, our first step, if I do this, this is a lateral lineal step. So I have to make it circular. So in this case, I'm going to take my side step slightly back. Yes, I'm making it bigger so you guys can see it. And by consequence, the rest of the body, hips, upper body, feet, they're twisted. So do not move anywhere. So this is the position. Okay? It's twisting, twisting. So that's my side step. And I'm keeping the same. And I'm coming back. Yes? For Sara it's the same. You see, she's forward, either going backwards. She's twisted. Let's say on that spiral position. So from that, we finish. Perfect, we're already there. Now look, I'm going to make a curve. I'm not going to go straight. See, I went straight. I'm going to make a curve. Sara is already in that position, so she didn't have to make more adjustments. So now I'm here. Yes, if I move here, you can see me. Okay, I'm twisted. Yeah? So, same thing that Sara did. Now from here, I'm going to keep this twist or make it even more when the next movement happens. In this case, I list this particular thing, but there are many different ways how to do it. So we have this. So it's twisted now. Again, both of us. So now her hip just went sideways, backwards. There is literally, can we go reverse? It's literally as she was trying to do this. Trying to do what I'm doing. This. She's trying to do a back ultra. So that's why the hip open, she's twisted. Now the difference that I leave it, trunk away. I keep my back ultra position, we both twisted. Again, same thing. Then we're here, we keep going. Look, she cannot go in a straight line, because now she goes away. So she has to make the curve at the same time that I can again just go straight. I have to also make the curve. Again. To then eventually continue whatever else.
So in terms of the body position, which is the first thing that we're talking about, turns, all of the turns, they have to be in the axis point, they have to be in rotation. If you reach axis and you look down on your body and you are square, meaning that your shoulders and your hips, your feet are all sort of aligned, that usually means that in the next step, you're going to have a linear direction. You're not going to keep turning. So in order to keep turning, you have to be sure that in the axis point, you are in a rotation. Leading this pivot, sorry, it's really...
It's really hard to lead the pivot. It requires a lot of power, and it's a combination of power and direction, and it will be really hard to explain you in the video.
So usually everything that we lead the same way. So if you can create a back step, or if you can create a back ocho, you should be able to, if you create a weight transfer in place, you should be able to create a back ocho with a weight transfer. So everything is done the same way. I'm sorry, we can't kind of, at least not in this video, talk about it, because we're talking more structurally about turns. Sorry.
Yeah, we're trying to make some general ideas, and when we go to specific things, we can. Sorry.
So in terms of, that's kind of like what's the really important thing about body, and also in terms of the body, you don't want to think like you are only two pieces, like your body is like two pieces which then rotate on top of each other. So like if you have a fridge with a freezer, right, a fridge and then a freezer, and then they like the freezer turns over the fridge, that's not the body rotation or the body twist we're talking about. The body twist that we're talking about has to do with all of your articulations rotating. So your femur bones have to turn on your hips. Your spine is not only turning in one spot, it's actually rotating all the way through. So all of these positions, they are full body positions. So your feet cannot be like flat, like this, if you're turning. Your feet are either in this position or they're in this position, but they're never in this position.
Always turn out.
Always turned out.
So you're always here. Always turn out.
Yeah. So that is pretty much like a little mini understanding about the body in turns. Cannot be linear. So the second thing that's important in turns is our geometry with each other. And the best way to practice turning geometry, I think we mentioned this before, is to work on your outside partner parallel, like like Rubik's Cube. No, you don't want to be like a Rubik's Cube. You actually want to imagine that you're like a like DNA, like a double helix, or that you're one part of the helix, and then when you go into geometry with your partner, that you're the double helix, right?
I can do it with my bracelet.
Yeah. You want to think about spirals. So that's also... Yeah. Okay. So the second part is like how we work together as a couple, and this is great that Ivan is showing you his bracelet, how it twists around itself. That's actually how we share space with those two bodies. So the two bodies, they enter into each other's space, spiraling like a double helix. Yeah, kind of like this. So this means something also very important is that the spaces that we create in our geometry, they also have to be elliptical. So that means that we can't have any lines. So like when Ivan was showing you the exercise for the turn, and he did it on the box and he did the square, the idea is that you want to curve around the edges instead of emphasizing the edges.
So meaning, if the only thing you have is a chair, let's say, and you have to practice with the chair, don't follow the lines of the chair, actually cut the corners.
Can you show them that one?
Yeah.
So Ivan will show you, if you want to do the chair exercise and you have a square chair, a better way to do it.
For more sense. Yeah. So this is the chair, so I see you. Can you see the chair well?
Yeah.
Good. So instead of going for each corner, you see this is the corner, and then we go on the line, doesn't work. It's not realistic. It's great when you do it by yourself, then you try it with a partner, it doesn't really work. What I want is this is the corner, I want to place myself in the middle of the box, and then I want to make the curve to arrive to the other middle of the box. And then make the curve, see, this is my forward one, and I'm going to arrive in the middle. And then the backwards, and then I arrive in the middle. So I'm in a way, in the center of my axis, if I stop in between, you will see that we have the corners. And then again, if I go forward, yes, and then again. So try to use the corners. Corners.
Yeah, so it is more like around a column. Columns are a lot more useful to think about because the axis of our partner is more circular. Usually they're also moving with us. So they are moving inside of a spiral. Even if they're stationary, they're not flat. They're not. Their body is not square. Their body itself is spiral. It's actually what they were creating for us. It's more of a column-like space.
Yeah, and also you have to be careful because as much as yes, we can practice with something else, but with time, if the object is not moving, it will create something also that is not realistic. Because sometimes it is true with the moving person. That yes, she goes around me, right, and I'm staying on the same place, and then this makes sense that she practices this like that, right? But if you, for whatever reason, here, as a person I'm moving, right, this direction is not going to be there anymore, and it might be that. Yes, if I stay in the same place, she goes around me, but if I also keep moving, say if I keep moving, and we're still going in a circle, I keep moving, her movement
Has to adjust.
has to adjust.
So my movement is not only going around in a particular shape, but this column that I am turning around is displacing in space at the same time. So actually those exercises with the chair, even if you do them correctly, they're useful in the sense that you practice the roundness of your steps, and it gives you an opportunity to practice all of your steps in like a sort of structured way. But in reality, we never really do like a fixed number of steps in a space. So let's say that we do have the square that's like this, and now let's say that we make it into a column. That column I can circle by making 36 steps, or I can circle by making 2 steps. So the good thing about practicing it in terms of having the 4 steps is that you work on all of your 4 movements, which is a those 2 side steps and the forward and back step. But in the end, will you do 4 steps to reach the same point you started from? Maybe you'll do 36 steps. Maybe you'll do 2. So
my recommendation is to grab a chair like our chair. That is circular. Yeah, we have ours is really circular. Yes. And you can practice from whatever you want to start, it doesn't matter, right? And you can practice the circular one here, right? But then, for example, move this around, keep it in the same place, but now I have to make it all the way there. See, now I have to make it even more circular. And like that, the same you can try with your side step. From here, I have to make it there. Side step, which moves a little bit forward to make the, or now move the chair a little bit backwards, and then you still have to do the same thing, but now I have to get all the way there now.
So it's going to kind of help you train that you are moving for a target, which is moving itself, rather than thinking that your movement is stationary. Stationary movement then creates a lot of problems, because when, especially followers, practice it a lot and they do it in a very regimented way, and they try to reproduce that when they're dancing and they're not actually following, most of the time they're not going to do what the leader is asking for. And so the turns won't work because that's not where they should be stepping. They think they're stepping correctly, but that's not where they should be stepping. So this brings us to something else that's really important for us, and that has to do with leading. For us, Ivan leads every step in the turn. And not only whether it's a forward, side, or back step, but also where I land and what speed we go at and how the size of my step and the energy of my step. So all those things are things that he communicates to me, and this is why I think we turn pretty well, because we're able to communicate to each other the precise location of where both of our bodies need to be for those turns to work.
Also something that can help you, and we can show you in a simple turn. The idea, I mean, we talk about it for us when we walk, but again, turning and walking is pretty much the same thing. The idea of trying to turn by putting your feet together is not a recommended idea for us because it's not realistic. If we take everything to how we walk, when you walk normally on the street, you don't bring your feet together, you stop, and then you go. This doesn't really happen, right? So when you turn, also shouldn't be like that as a default. It should be something that is led, something in particular that is led. That's why you have to put your feet together. So for example, if we do a normal turn, we enter into a normal turn, we have 1, 2, 3. That's it, right? If you from here, Sara, try to put her feet together every time. Feet together. Feet together. Every time I want to really enter into the sacada, she's already out of it because she's so concentrated on putting her feet together that it doesn't work. Keep going. You were there. You already stopped. I'm going to the side step now. Can you change weight? Right. And where are the feet together?
I can't.
Exactly. Yes? So that idea of putting your feet together in a sacada, some people will say, oh, well, no, when we do sacadas, you don't do it. So then now you need to remember, okay, when is a sacada, you put your feet together, when sacada is not. So more importantly, you want to think about if you were really making a circular movement, look at the leg on the back, it's going to keep maintaining the circular movement to then on the second one, look where we are, and even more importantly on the side step, keeps going on a circular movement here, and more importantly here, look where my sacada is. See, I'm not going here, that's not where I'm going. I want to keep turning. Now, the path of this leg is not lateral. I want to curve. So these have to go backwards around. So that's the biggest problems on turns when they are dynamically or not dynamically.
When they're dynamic or not dynamic.
Yes. So we have da, da, da. Again, look at that one. Da, 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 da. Okay? Or when we make it really circular. And again, that's when the answer to the
No, I just don't understand your points.
I just want to show them instead of talking about it. Yes? We're trying to maintain that it's more circular, so you have to be aware of the directions that they happen. Again, that they're circular. When you put your feet together, then you're trying to make a lateral movement, which is linear, instead of actually keep going circular all the way, to then eventually your feet might pass together. But it's not something that you try to do perfectly.
So this is the idea of making this body mechanic, which is rotated, making it into a rotated geometry when both of us are working together. So everything in turns, it has to be circular. Unless you want an effect that's not circular. Mm-hmm. So if you want an effect that's linear in the middle of your turn and you want it to look very big, and sometimes stage dancers use this because they really like it very big. They want to show you that they're entering, that they have energy and power. They tend to enter more lineal so that this embrace opens and closes and it looks more dramatic. But for social dancing, it's unnecessary. You can do it as a how do you say that? As a, not an effect, but as a styling. But for social dancing, if you want to turn, then maybe keep on turning.
Yeah. They're asking if when we want to slow down, you make it less circular. Mm-mm.
No.
Still the same.
So the shape of the movement has nothing to do, speed has nothing to do with shape. If you have control, then you have control. You can do it slow, you can do it fast.
You can do it big, you can do it small.
You can do it big and small, it absolutely doesn't matter. So shape and energy are not really related. Is there anything else about geometry? Mm-hmm. No. So the next thing that actually I want to talk about is the energy component. Like you're kind of getting us there. So a lot of the time for turns, and we talked last time about like how sometimes leaders, when they use momentum to turn themselves, especially if they're on one leg, they like swing the upper body to do it. So for us, the energy for rotations comes from the same place that energy for walking comes. And that has to do with how our bodies interact with the floor and how we're pushing. So if we have if we're using the weight of our body against the floor and we're using our muscles and our feet, our ankles, articulations to make power to move forward, we're using the same idea when we're turning. And actually the circular body, meaning letting the hips pass the torso or having the torso pass the upper body, helps you sometimes control a lot of that energy if you want to use more energy to have a higher turn speed. So a really interesting exercise is just to walk in a line and then change direction. So something like this is very useful. So let's say that I'm walking in a line. I'm using normally my feet and making sure that I'm articulating. So I walk in a line and then I decide that I want to change direction. That articulation of the ankle, it still has to be the same. Yeah? So even if I'm walking in a line or I'm walking in a turn, the articulation of my foot should be the same. If in my turn I don't articulate and then I make the direction, I have two problems. One is that I'm making a linear movement instead of a circular movement. And the second one is timing. So if I walk 1, 2, 3, and let's say my next step should be in the same timing, 1. If at this point I rotate and then go, I have done 1, 2. I'm one whole time behind. So it's really important to be consistent, like Ivan said before, that whatever you're doing with your body when you're making linear movements, that you do the same thing when you're making circular movements. The second thing is with the body. So I have more control if I'm flat.
More control if you're flat?
No, less.
Less control.
So if I'm flat, I don't have control. I'm like a little refrigerator. I'm sort of like spinning out, even if I use my feet correctly. So this is where the orientation of the upper body really helps. If I'm already in the spiral position, and then as I'm articulating, I maintain the spiral position, the spiral rotation of my body helps me create braking in the energy so that I can use a lot of power with my feet and not fall down when I'm landing in the next step. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's pretty much what I want to talk about turns. Is there something else you wanted to say then?
No, for me, I just want to. I like to show them more with movements than just.
Okay, you want to show them? Okay, let's show them some movements then.
What do you want to show them?
I don't know. You want to show them movements?
No, before and you cut me. You say no. What are you going for? People need to move. They're already sitting a lot with these bars. Jesus.
Why don't we look at the questions and see what questions we had?
Okay, I can't find them here.
You can't find them. You need to go to YouTube, and then just go to our video, March 31st. You need to go to accounts. You can just go to March 31st.
March 31st.
31st, Sara, Ivan. And we have the vlog, yay! And then we stop it, and look at the comments, yay! Okay, so let's see. Okay, the first question that I see is recommendations for using the ankles. Okay, so it's an exercise. Walking outside partner exercise you mentioned here that helps with turning. The walk I think we showed it to them. Walking outside partner.
No, you just talked about it.
Okay, so we'll show you the walking outside partner, which is helpful.
Sometimes we forget who leads.
You're such a control freak.
Yeah. So outside partner, I have to go outside and try to maintain 2 tracks for my legs, 2 tracks for my legs. But still trying to make it circular. That's why there is this debate between Sara and I that we might have 3 tracks because this foot is coming so close to this one that it's almost look like a track that got a little wider, that ate a lot after the virus. And then the other one here, still 2 tracks, and then here, still 2 tracks. So let me show you this direction so you can see it. Now you want to talk about that. Okay. 1. Yes, we're making it really obvious, guys. Down, down, down. Yes, and now those are obvious, more normal. Down, down, down. Just fight with me. There you go. And the other side, come here. I have to fight with you a little bit to make it more interesting. We haven't put it in a while. Yes, and it's the same for Sara. Okay, outside, outside. Yes. And the same in the other. And in terms of the exercise, what you can do for your ankles. Go ahead.
So let's look at the other questions, and then we'll go over all the exercise questions all together.
So
just easier. Sorry.
What was that sound? Good.
Okay. Previously, when you're talking about the relative movement in space when turning and start stepping bigger on her own, no, I'm not I'm stepping bigger because Ivan is telling me to step bigger. He's leading the length of the step. Yeah.
Stop the question.
So let's go over that because that's an important one.
Get everything?
The length of the step.
The length of the step. No, the length of the step is led by the man. As from the first day that you learn, let's say, how to lead, you understand how to create this, or let's say how to create this. That should be the first.
Maybe not the first, but it's a relatively fundamental idea that you should be able to manage the length of the step.
Yes. Yeah. Then once I understand that, then it's the same thing to make the circle. So if I wanted the first side step here, or there, or that way, it goes the same thing with the back step. Here, 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 and it goes the same. Those are long steps. Then this is also an option. Yeah? I can make it also longer, shorter, however I want. This again, that have to do with what I'm leading. Okay, that means any position for her. If it's forward and back and forward. Any shape they want. So that's determined by the leader.
Yeah, and leading is not done by pulling.
Nope.
You have to tell your follower that she needs to move herself. She needs to step.
By moving yourself.
Why many teachers teach to collect your foot and then project step to do a turn and 4 steps? I don't know why. I think there are a lot of great dancers that when they dance and what they teach is not the same thing. I think there's a lot of inertia in tango pedagogy, meaning that people just repeat what their teachers have told them.
It's like sometime, at some points, long time ago, some of the old guys that they were dancing tango, supernatural. There was no, people would explain you which muscle you use and etc. etc. Somebody saw that they're dancing. Oh, I like how you dance. Can you teach me how is that you do it? And the guy is like, okay, I guess let me see how I teach you. And there were no teachers, so they tried to explain you things that they thought that they were doing. So at some point, somebody say, I don't know, project for whatever reason, or somebody say, put your feet together to pivot, right? Because maybe on this particular moment that was happening, or for whatever reason, the person says that. Then somebody else heard, they start doing it, and then somebody else like that, and it becomes like a snowball.
There's some idea, I think there's a lot of ideas about what tango should look like. So sometimes people want to tell you what it should like. It should be elegant. Therefore, you should point your foot and extend your leg forward.
Or when you don't want to open your legs,
don't
put
open
your feet
legs.
together.
There's a lot of ideas that are like good ideas in terms of aesthetic, but they're not actually real ideas in terms of really what happens in movement, because they're just not. So if you have a dance that's natural, then the movement has to be natural. If you have a dance which is based on codes, then it doesn't matter also so much the naturalness of the movement, because you're not relying on the person to move naturally. You're relying on that person to know the step and to obey the rules of that step. And so there is some merit to that argument, because there are people who say, well, the conventions is what makes tango look like tango. But then it's like, my style is tango and your style is not. And we know that there are a lot of really great dancers who dance stylistically very differently, and they all could say, my dance is the tango and not yours. And that's how we get into trouble, that we can't dance with each other. So when the focus starts to shift away from the dance being defined by a particular aesthetic, then also the teaching starts to open, because a lot of the things that used to be taught, for example, bring your legs together in a turn, project, they're all like stylistic markers of what it should look like, versus, okay, how do we move well? How do we communicate well? How do we dance together? So, a lot of people also sometimes make a choice that they want it to be that way, and that's fine. That's just not our story.
For us, we understood that first, it was important to understand your body movement, that you move naturally, that it doesn't feel like you are uncomfortable with your own body, that you are free to move, and that you can communicate whatever you want to your partner. Once that you can do that and you feel free and you can create the energy necessary for the follower, and the follower understands you and she can move herself, I don't have to move her, etc., 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 then the question about how you want to make it look, it becomes a choice, right?
So it's not that we don't that we wouldn't ever use collection, or that we wouldn't ever do a linear turn. Well, we would use that as a stylistic choice once we know how to create all movement. So all of those things, they are possible to do. It's up to you to do it, but don't think that that's the only way to do it, or that's the way that it works. Mm-hmm. That's just the way that you shape it.
They show them to extremes.
Yeah.
So we can make it super kind of like old-fashioned, super fit together, as pretty as possible, right? See, we're trying to. Yes, and we can say, okay, this is the tango, this is the elegant
so
tango.
So if we were to turn in this style, with the legs coming together, with the projection,
I think you can see there. One more time. Yeah, you can make the shape of that, but even though. Or you can tie your shoes first, or you can, let's say, just move. However you want. Okay? Even on the walk. Yeah, maybe it's not as defined. Yes? Oh, that's it. Yeah, it becomes then with time your stylistic choice. Where you want to put your hand, where you put the shoulder, how much you bend, how you use your feet, and all of that. It shouldn't be like, oh, this is how it have to be all the time.
And for followers, it's particularly really important that we follow what the leader is leading in terms of the turning style or turning way. Because if we do our own timing in the turn, meaning if we have a different coordination than the leader, the turn won't work. So it's super important that we are not married to the way that we do it. Because if the leader has a slightly different coordination, it's not going to work. Yeah. So what does coordination mean? Coordination is the timing of the movement of the axis versus the movement of the free leg. If my leader is moving his whole axis, but I'm only projecting my leg first, we're going to run into each other. If my leader is projecting, but I move my whole axis, I will move out of the position before he's even in it.
So you want to match what the other person is doing. They are projecting, meaning they should be leading the projection. You followers follow the projection. He's not projecting, he's moving his entire body. Do not project follower because he's not leading the projection. You move the whole body.
If, for example, the leader is leading legs together, bring the legs together because that's what's being led.
If he's not, do not bring it together because that's not what's being led.
So imagine he's not leading, bringing the legs together, and you bring them together, and he tries to do a sacada, and he basically like hits you. Not nice.
Yeah.
Really not nice. So
And
that's all we're saying in terms of that.
And the last thing, why it is popular to turn in straight steps then. Let me put it this way. Maybe because there are more, because there are more good dancers than good teachers. And a lot of the people that they, today and even before, they, let's say, they're popular or they work in festivals and this and this and that. They're bring to the festival because they're good dancers, which it doesn't say that they're good teachers. Many people, they start dancing. At some point, somebody say, "I love how you dance. Please teach me what you do." And the guys is like, "Oh, what did I do? Let me see. Let me think about it." And if they think about it, so they end up teaching whatever they can. They're not being assholes or they're not bad or anything. It's just like they're not teachers. They didn't train themselves to start thinking about how I should teach people. And there is a few people that they've been working for a long time and learning many different things to be able to teach. And then yes, some people they like the linear part of it because it's an effect and a stylistic choice. And other people they choose the more circular. They supposedly this idea this school of the linear school and the circular school. What we understood is this: many people, because of their bodies, their physiognomy and their geometry, is naturally to turn circular. And most of them they do a circular, or they do let's say 80% circular, and then they do some things linear. They try to make it linear, right? But their body doesn't let them.
Yeah, so most of the time, even people who talk about linear turns, their forward or back steps are usually circular, actually.
So then, how is that linear? Just because they only do the side steps linear?
Yeah.
But the forward and the back step, they're circular. So it's like, okay, we turn in circular, we turn in linear. We have to kind of decide. So
yeah, so in the turns, the follower she goes outside further and further away from me. That tends to happen because on the side step, the followers go in a line, and then that side step takes her out, and you start to feel like you're out of control, and then the forward step is not curved enough. So if you do enough turns, yeah, the feeling is going to be that. The other thing that tends to happen is that a lot of followers are not straight in their axis. They're actually kind of like leaning forward. So their legs are actually farther away from you. Their chest is close, but their legs are far away. And when they do a rotated step, so if I were to do a forward ocho by myself, my forward ocho is like going around the column. See, it's not a rotated step in a line. It's not this. It's not in a line. It's actually curved. So a lot of people, when they do even their rotated steps, they cross their body over. So their legs end up farther away from you, and that's one of the sort of errors of the body mechanic, that they're not maintaining two lines for their legs.
And that's why it sometimes ends up happening that the follower, when you're doing a turn, they step away from you. And they step away from you again for their body mechanics that Sara just explained, but also if they're leaning forward, it's more likely that you're also leaning forward. What does that mean? That our legs are farther away from each other. So end up happening a lot. Somehow in the walk, this is really nice, do it, we lean, we do the walk here, and then from here, let's say I want to turn. We're too far from each other. Let me show you more here. And then I want to try to do an rosco, something's like, oh, somehow she goes too far. Well, you're already from the beginning, you are far from each other because you're leaning. So sorry?
So on top of that, now I can fix this position if I go here.
Right.
But most of the time people don't. People go here. They overcross their legs in the forward step.
They're making a linear.
Because they're making a lineal. And then in the side step, they do a side step line.
We're already.
It's too far.
So for that, sometimes there are some classes that are like, oh, how to close the distance, open and close embrace, how to change embraces. And then people teach you from the idea of being here leaning and then somehow manage a way to come back to your axis. Yes, which is possible. It's really hard to lead that, yes, and you can try it. But it will be easier, we think about it like this. You're already straight, and then whenever you want to turn, you're already there. Let me show you again, we don't have the angle. So you're already standing straight, you want to turn, it doesn't really change anything. And then you come back into the turn. Into the walk, not into the turn, sorry.
Yeah. Okay. So, yeah. The side step also should be around the leader, exactly. Can you open it one more time with your face?
Face.
So, walking video apart from the ankle. Okay, talk about ochos. Okay, ochos we'll cover next time because they're actually more complex. They're kind of easier, but they're also more complex depending on how you do them than turning.
Just remember something that kind of like how you say, hint.
Mm-hmm.
For a reason, everybody calls them ocho. Ocho in Spanish is a number 8.
We'll talk about it next time.
Yes.
So there's a question about fundamental exercises. So all of you guys are asking about fundamental exercises. There's a question about exercises for the ankle, exercises for turning, and there's another question about what to do with the legs when you're leading a turn as a leader. I would recommend you guys that you get the TangoMate videos. They're way more useful than us here on live. I mean, this is good conceptually, but the TangoMate videos are actually like organized and developed.
Yeah, the vlogs are an idea for us to kind of talk about many different things, but then like a more general idea, and we try to sometimes go and be more specific one thing. Our TangoMate videos, they're completely specific and organized from 0 to whatever.
Or like what to do.
Yes, and so, the exercises and etc.
Yeah, this is more to have a conversation and kind of break up some myths or challenge some myths or bring some new ideas about.
And also to see what you guys think and what are the questions, because it helps us to understand what is that people need more.
Yeah. So the last question that I want to talk about is the knee question and the pain question.
Yeah.
Somebody wrote they have a pain in their knee if they're turning on one leg. So if you have pain in your knee when you're turning on one leg, it's because you are turning yourself. So again, my knee, it's my foot. You're turning yourself, but you're not rotating your foot. So that means that your power for your turn is coming from here, and it's not coming from your foot. So my knee doesn't hurt if this part of my leg is actually rotating as one piece. If my knee turns beyond my foot, or if I try to swing my hips, then the part that's going to have problems is the knee. So if you have knee pain in your turns, it means that the energy, your energy, how you acquire energy is pretty incorrect. It means that you're going from the top instead of going from the floor.
And if it's not in the turn and you still have the same pain, then it's a question about how you're placing yourself on your foot. Some people naturally they're more more on the inside of the foot. Yes, that will create a knee problem also, so you have to be careful. So that means that you have either no arch, or that you are not engaging in either the inner thighs or outer part of your leg. So you have to make sure that you are on the center of your foot, like as much as you can, that your foot doesn't come in, it doesn't go out.
So if you're turning in one place, like a pirouette, that weight should be distributed evenly between your toes and your big toe and your little toe. If that movement is actually like a forward step or a back step that you're pushing through, then your weight will shift through your metatarsal depending on where you're moving.
Yeah, so when, let's say you turn, let's say I'm on this foot, can you
just
if I just go completely straight, then yes, my foot is more likely it's going to go completely on top of my my entire foot. I can say from the heel, center to the toes. But then if I want to turn more here, then what's going to happen, there is some movement inside the axis. Yes, I'm making it really big for you guys to see it. It's not that big. That happens when we're moving. Yes, depending on the direction that we have it. That doesn't mean that I try to do this to then turn. It happens naturally. I want to keep it, the knee and the foot always together, right? And then depending on the direction after the pivot is where you're going to feel that there is more pressure, or it's from the smaller toe to the middle toe to the big toe. So it's not that I'm trying to do it purposely, I just have to pay attention to it.
It's just that follow through, the final part of the movement will end depending on where you're moving, side, back, or forward, yeah? On the inside or the outside of your foot. So yeah, not only when you turn does the power come from the bottom up, the power always comes from the bottom up.
Yes, from the beginning that we say, use your foot, use your legs, use the ground, be grounded. How can you be more stable? Well, first of all, standing straight. Second of all, pushing the ground, right? And then make sure that your coordination is correctly, that's on the end, dancing is coordinating correctly,
or
coordinated period
for what you need functionally.
So that's what makes you stable, that's what makes you grounded, that will make you accomplish many of the things. So like we said, yes, from the linear movements practice a lot of the things, but then that stuff that you're working on there, when you go into turns, it becomes almost like three-dimensional. So you have to still applying the same energy, if no more. And you have to be aware of the curves and how you're using your feet, that you still did it in the linear movements, how you're using the position of your body, that you're still straight, etc., etc.
Yeah. So turning is like walking, but on steroids, because you start to have this three-dimensional body structure through the spiral and through space sharing and through the geometry. So it's like, if you think that for your walk in a line, your alignments have to be correct, for good turning, your alignments have to be even more correct. So
I would say that then working on your turn is not the best idea.
If you want to improve your turn, your problem is probably not the turn.
comes from you just walking. If your walk is correct, that's why people talk about the walk and blah blah blah. Then the same things that you did in the walk, you have to put it on the turn. Just now you have to make a curve, which is a little bit harder. But other than that, everything else, all the other fundamentals, they're still there.
So the last thing that I want to say, just like with the exercises, if you guys want to have really good exercises, my suggestion is to get the very first Tango Meet, what's it called? Section or whatever collection, because it's like 20 videos. It's only like 150 euros or something like that, but each video is like 20 minutes, and it has TheraBand exercises, and it's all about the individual body mechanics. So now while you're at home, if you need some exercise, like do it. It's completely worthwhile price-wise, and it will really help because it's
and
very
you
detailed.
own them forever. You have them forever. Yeah. I'm using them too.
Yeah, so to work on the turn, I actually do walk and walk. Yeah.
Yes.
So anyway, we kind of went over a lot. I think we've been talking for like an hour, but turns are a big topic, so actually we have a lot more to say.
They're the hardest thing because to make a successful turn, you need to put everything together.
Yeah. So we'll be here for like another 10 minutes, just fielding questions if you guys have them. Write them now. If you don't, just write them again in the comments. Next week, we're going to talk about otros. Yeah, so you're welcome. It was a pleasure. Any other questions? How's everybody doing at home?
Yeah.
Here in Croatia, they announced 3 days ago that this is gonna keep going for like 2 more months, and then people just, I think, freaked out. And today it was parade day on the street. Everybody was out and about, and we usually go to the park with the dog, and it was like a highway. So I don't know how good these measures are working.
Yeah.
But
so I mean, how long they can sustain this? That's the problem.
I don't know.
I mean, how long can we, like all of us, can sustain this?
You're welcome. We try. Information is important. We need to share it. Yeah, 2 more months. Yeah. So they're saying that beginning of June, they're going to start thinking about relaxing the measures, but I don't know. We'll see.
This is what I want to do when I think of those 2 more months. Let's see if you guys can see it. And get out of here. Pretty much.
That actually, if we could swim, I could be happier.
No?
But actually, in Croatia, we have really strict measures, so we can't leave our city. We have to be at our designated address. So we can go to the park, but no coast, no mountains.
No.
It was such a pleasure, Matteo. Thank you so much for having the patience and hanging out with us. We don't always have the best connection, but
for whatever reason,
hopefully you guys got it. Anyway, okay, I guess nobody else has any questions. Thank you all so much. If you like the videos, share them. Oh, we can talk about that next time.
That's a long topic. It's easy. Yeah. A lot of meditation.
Ivan meditates and I drink wine.
No, I mean, like, to resume, it's like the most important thing about a relationship, however it is, if it's like a love relationship or a relationship that you're just dancing with somebody or whatever, is that you guys have somehow the same goal.
And respect.
Yes. But goal to start, and then, like, of course, the respect behind it and all of that. If you have the same goal, then it's a little easier. Yeah, you will fight. There's always fights or whatever.
Fight a lot.
Yes, but after a while, then there is nothing else left to fight.
Then you just drink wine.
Yeah.
Okay, guys, thank you so much. Many kisses to everybody. Write us. Let us know how's it going. How it's going.
16 years.
I know. Share the videos. Get Tango Meat. Bye. No, I think I'm done here.